When I saw the 2 wedding rings on her nightstand, I knew my sister was living a life I didn't recognize anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. The air in my sister's guest room felt heavy, like it was holding a secret it didn't want to share. The hum of the refrigerator downstairs was the only sound cutting through the silence. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation we'd had that weekend. Every smile, every deflection, every "don't worry about it" she gave me. It was strange, the way she looked at her phone, like it belonged to someone else. Like every vibration meant trouble. My twin, Maya, had always been the bright one, the one who laughed too loud, loved too hard, and apologized too late. We were identical in face, but nothing alike in spirit. Growing up, I was the quiet one, the good twin, people said. Maya was the storm, and I loved her for it, until the storm started washing everything away. When we were little, our mother used to tell us that twin hearts beat from the same drum, that no matter where we went in life, we'd always feel each other's pain. Maybe that's why I started feeling uneasy weeks before everything came crashing down. Maya had stopped calling as often. Her texts were short, rushed. "Busy, sis. Love you, talk later." And yet, I could sense something wasn't right. When her husband, Aaron, called me one afternoon asking if I'd heard from her, the pit in my stomach grew heavier. "She told me she was with you this weekend," he said. His voice was calm, but there was a crack in it, a sharp edge that told me he didn't quite believe it. "With me?" I repeated, startled. "No, she's not here, Aaron." That was the first time I realized my sister was lying, not just to him, but to all of us. The next weekend, I decided to visit her. She lived 3 hours away in Atlanta, a city she said gave her room to breathe. I didn't tell her I was coming. I just packed an overnight bag, got in my car, and drove. By the time I reached her house, the sun was sinking behind the skyline, washing everything in gold. Her car was in the driveway. Another one, a dark blue SUV, was parked beside it. I didn't recognize it. When she opened the door, her smile faltered for just a moment. "Tessa, what are you doing here?" I shrugged, forcing a smile. "Surprise visit. I missed you." Her eyes flickered toward the living room, where I heard a faint laugh, a man's voice. She hesitated, then opened the door wider. Come in, come in. Sorry for the mess." The house wasn't messy. It was different. New furniture. A different scent, sandalwood and something floral. And then he appeared, tall, kind-faced, wearing a t-shirt that read "World's Best Dad." He smiled warmly at me. "You must be Tessa, Maya's sister. She's told me so much about you." I froze. He said it so naturally, Maya's sister. She had introduced me to him, but not as her twin. Not as the reflection of her truth. "Nice to meet you," I managed to say. He held out his hand. "I'm Daniel." That night, at dinner, I couldn't taste the food. I just watched her, the way she laughed, touched his arm, called him baby. And when their little boy, a bright-eyed 6-year-old, came running from the hall calling her mommy, I felt something inside me break. After they went to bed, I stayed in the guest room, staring at the ceiling again. That's when I saw them. 2 rings on the nightstand. One gold, one silver. Both worn. Both engraved. One said Aaron and Maya, forever. The other said Daniel and May. May. She'd even changed her name. I sat there in the dark, holding both rings in my hand, the metal cold against my skin. I thought about Aaron, the man waiting at home, probably wondering if his wife was still visiting her sister. And I thought about Daniel, asleep next door, dreaming in a lie he didn't even know he was living. The next morning, I left without saying goodbye. But I didn't go home. I drove straight to Aaron's house. He opened the door, looking tired. The kind of tired that lives in your bones. "Tessa?" he said, frowning. "What's wrong?" I didn't answer right away. I stepped inside and handed him something, a photo I'd taken before I left. It was of Maya and Daniel at dinner, their son between them, smiling. For a long time, Aaron didn't speak. Then he sank into the couch, his hand pressed to his forehead. She's really doing this," he whispered. I nodded. I wish I was wrong. That night, Aaron and I made a decision, one that would change everything. If Maya wanted to live 2 lives, she could explain both of them, face to face. 2 weeks later, we found our moment. It was her birthday. Aaron invited her to dinner, said he wanted to celebrate privately, just the 2 of them. What she didn't know was that Daniel would be there too. And me. I can still remember the look on her face when she walked into that restaurant and saw us all sitting there. Her steps faltered. Her smile fell. And for a moment, she looked like a child again, scared, small, exposed. "Tessa," she whispered. "What are you doing?" I looked her in the eye. "Ending the lie, Maya." The room fell silent except for the sound of her breath, shallow, shaking. Erin spoke first. "So, tell us, Maya. Or should I say, May?" Her knees buckled, and she sank into the chair. Then the tears came. Maya didn't look at any of us at first. Her hands trembled in her lap. The ring Erin had given her glinting under the restaurant's warm light, the same hand that had worn Daniel's ring too. She wiped her tears quickly, like a child trying not to be scolded. "I can explain," she whispered, her voice breaking. Erin leaned forward, his voice low but steady. "Then do it, because right now, we all deserve to know which life you've been living, and which one is the lie." Maya's eyes darted between us. Between her husband and her other husband. Between her past and her present. Between me, her twin, and the mirror of her guilt. She looked so small, sitting there. The woman who'd once been fearless. "I never meant for it to go this far," she said finally. "Daniel doesn't know about Erin. Erin doesn't know about Daniel. I thought I could. I thought I could make everyone happy." Her voice cracked on the word happy. I felt a chill run through me. Happy? She had a husband, a child, a home, 2 of each. And yet, she'd built her joy on lies. Daniel spoke up next, his face pale. "Maya, what is she talking about?" She turned toward him, reaching for his hand. But he pulled away. "I'm sorry," she cried. "My name isn't May. It's Maya. I was married before. I thought it was over. Erin and I were falling apart, and I just wanted a new start. You and Jamie, you gave me peace. I didn't mean to hurt you." Her words hung in the air like smoke, suffocating and thick. Erin looked at her with disbelief that had turned into quiet rage. "So while I was working late, trying to fix our marriage, you were building another one?" She flinched. "It wasn't like that." I stepped in then, softly. "Maya, you had choices. You could have told the truth, but you didn't. You created 2 worlds, and now both are falling apart." For a moment, she glared at me through her tears. "You don't understand, Tessa. You've always had everything figured out. You've always been the good one. I couldn't live in your shadow forever." Her words cut deeper than I expected, because she wasn't entirely wrong. All our lives, people had compared us. Tessa, calm, dependable. Maya, wild, impulsive. I never meant to make her feel small. But somewhere along the way, she decided to prove that she could live louder, freer, even if it meant lying to everyone who loved her. Daniel stood up then, pushing his chair back. The sound echoed through the restaurant. "I have a son," he said, his voice trembling. "You told me his father died. Was that a lie too?" Maya sobbed. "No, Daniel, please, Jamie's yours. I swear he's yours." The tears in her eyes were real. That much I could tell, but the damage was already done. Erin looked away, shaking his head. "You destroyed 2 families, Maya. 2, she whispered. I just wanted to feel whole again. I felt something shift inside me then. A mix of anger and pity, because I could see the truth behind her words. She wasn't evil. She was broken, chasing love in every mirror, hoping one reflection would make her feel enough. We left the restaurant quietly that night. No screaming, no drama, just silence, the kind that follows after a storm. Daniel took his son and left. Erin signed the papers 2 weeks later, and Maya. She moved into a small apartment downtown. Alone. For a while, she didn't speak to me. I think she blamed me for everything, for exposing her, for breaking the illusion she had worked so hard to build. But the truth was, the illusion was breaking long before I stepped in. Months passed. I tried to move on, but something about it kept tugging at my heart. She was still my sister, my twin. The other half of my heartbeat. One evening, I found myself standing outside her apartment. I don't know what made me go, guilt, love, or maybe just the memory of the girl we used to be. She opened the door slowly. Her eyes were tired, her hair tied back messily, her living room bare. "Tessa," she said softly. "You shouldn't have come." "I know," I said. But I had to. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us was thick with everything unsaid. Finally, she whispered, "I hate you for what you did." I nodded. "I know. But," she continued, her voice breaking, "I hate myself more." We sat down at her kitchen table, the same one that still had a small stain from when we spilled tea years ago during one of our sister sleepovers. "I didn't want to destroy anyone's life," she said. I just wanted to start over. I thought if I built something new, I could bury my mistakes. I sighed. You can't build happiness on secrets, Maya. It always cracks underneath. She looked at me then, her eyes red. Do you think I can ever fix it? I reached across the table and took her hand. Maybe not fix it, I said. But you can face it, and that's where healing starts. We sat there for a long time, saying nothing, just breathing in the silence that had once been unbearable, now strangely comforting. That night, as I drove home, I looked at the empty passenger seat beside me. For years, it had felt like Maya's laughter filled that space. Now, it was quiet, but for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I felt peaceful, because even in her chaos, she was teaching me something. That love without honesty isn't love at all. And forgiveness, even when undeserved, is the only way to set yourself free. A few weeks after that quiet night in Maya's apartment, I thought the storm had finally passed. But storms don't just end. Sometimes they wait for you around the next corner. One evening, I received a call from Daniel. His voice was steady, but I could hear the exhaustion behind it. Tessa, he said. I thought you should know, Jamie's school called. They said Maya hasn't been picking him up lately. He's been staying with me full time. My chest tightened. She's not well, I said softly. He sighed. I know, but the thing is, Jamie keeps asking questions. About his mom. About where she goes. I don't know what to tell him. There was silence on the line. Outside my window, the sun was setting. The kind of amber light that turns everything nostalgic, almost forgiving. I'll talk to her, I finally said. When I found Maya, she was sitting at the small park near her apartment. The same one we used to visit as kids when life felt simpler. She had a paper cup of coffee in her hands, gone cold. I know why you're here, she said without looking up. I just want to make sure you're okay. She gave a small laugh, hollow tired. Okay? That word doesn't mean much anymore. I sat beside her. The autumn leaves crunched beneath my shoes. Jamie misses you. Her lips trembled. I miss him too. But I can't face him yet, Tessa. I can't face anyone. When I walk down the street, I swear people know. I can feel them looking at me, whispering. I touched her arm gently. You're not defined by what you did, Maya. You're defined by what you do next. She turned to me then, her eyes glistening. And what if what I do next is disappear? My heart ached at that. You can't disappear. You still have a son. A chance. It's not over, Maya. She looked away, whispering. It feels like it is. A few days later, everything unraveled again. Aaron, her first husband, posted online. A long, painful message. He didn't mention her name directly, but anyone who knew the story could connect the dots. He wrote about betrayal, about living two lives unknowingly, about trust being a fragile thing. Within hours, it spread. People whispered, neighbors talked, family members called. By the next morning, Maya's phone was full of missed calls, texts, and unread messages, most of them cruel. She called me in tears. Tessa, they're all saying things, lies, half-truths, twisting everything. I can't breathe. I drove to her place immediately. She was sitting on the floor, phone in her lap, mascara streaking her cheeks. They're calling me names, Tess. A liar, a cheater, a monster. But I'm not those things. I just made mistakes. I knelt beside her. Then stop hiding. Speak for yourself. Tell your truth before someone else does it for you. We spent the entire night crafting her message. Not perfect, not polished, just honest. The next morning, she recorded a video. No makeup, no filters. Just Maya, my sister, raw and trembling, but brave. She said, I hurt people. I lied to people who didn't deserve it. I wanted to feel loved. And I thought having more love meant more life, but it only made me hollow. I'm sorry to everyone I've hurt, especially to those who trusted me. When she posted it, we sat in silence. Watching the comments come in felt like holding our breath underwater. Some were cruel, yes, but others were kind. People who'd made their own mistakes. People who understood shame. People who said, thank you for being honest. And for the first time in months, I saw a spark of something in her. Maybe not joy yet, but courage. But the hardest part was still ahead. Daniel reached out a few days later. He said he wanted Maya to come see Jamie. He didn't promise forgiveness, just a visit. We arrived at Daniel's house on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Jamie was playing in the backyard, kicking a soccer ball, his laughter echoing faintly through the open window. When he saw her, he froze for a moment, then ran straight into her arms. Mommy, he whispered, clutching her tightly. Maya knelt down, her tears falling into his hair. I'm so sorry, baby. Daniel stood a few feet away, watching. His expression was complicated, pain mixed with a kind of quiet acceptance. I don't know if we can ever go back, he said. But he deserves his mother. Maya nodded through her tears. I know. Later that night, as we drove home, Maya looked out the window. The city lights reflected in her eyes like tiny pieces of hope. Do you think I can ever be the person they remember? She asked softly. I took a deep breath. Maybe not exactly the same, but you can be someone better, someone real. She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that comes after a long cry. You've always been the good one, Tessa. I shook my head. No, I just learned to stay when things get hard. That's all. She squeezed my hand. Then maybe it's time I learned that too. I thought that might be the end of it. But life rarely gives clean endings. 2 weeks later, Maya was invited to a community support group, a space for people rebuilding after betrayal. She asked me to go with her. I watched her stand up in front of strangers and say, my name is Maya, and I hurt people I loved because I didn't love myself enough. There was silence, then gentle applause. In that moment, I saw my sister, not the liar, not the broken woman, but the girl I grew up with, standing taller again. I wish I could say everything smoothed over after that night at the support group, that forgiveness washed away the pain, and that we all simply moved forward. But that's not how life works. Healing doesn't come as a wave. It comes as a slow, uneven tide. Maya was trying. Truly trying. She'd started therapy, reconnected with Jamie, and even volunteered at a local shelter on weekends. But there was still something unfinished between her and Aaron, the husband she betrayed in the most painful way. He had never spoken to her after that public post. Not once. But one morning, out of nowhere, she received a letter. It wasn't long, but it was sharp. He wrote that he'd been humiliated, that he'd lost friends and business partners because of the scandal. But at the end, in small, almost broken handwriting, he said, if you ever want to apologize in person, I'll listen once. She called me immediately. Tessa, should I go? I thought about it for a long moment. If you go, go as the woman you are now, not the one who lied. The meeting was set for the following Sunday, at a quiet cafe halfway between their towns. Maya asked me to come, but I told her no. This is something you have to do alone, I said softly. But I'll wait in the car. She smiled faintly, almost like she did when we were children, and I dared her to face her fears. That morning, I parked outside the cafe, close enough to see through the window, but far enough to give her space. When Aaron walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. He looked older, not in years, but in spirit, like someone who'd carried too much hurt for too long. Maya stood up as he approached. She was trembling slightly, but her shoulders were straight. He didn't hug her. He didn't sit right away. For a moment, he just looked at her. And then he said quietly, why? Through the glass, I couldn't hear the words, but I could see the emotion in her face, the way her lips quivered, how her eyes darted between regret and relief. At one point, she reached across the table. He didn't take her hand, but he didn't pull away either. It lasted about 20 minutes. Then they both stood. She said something. I could tell by the way her chin lifted that it was from the heart. And then, Aaron nodded once, turned, and left. When she came back to the car, she didn't speak for a long time. Her hands were shaking. He forgave me, she whispered finally. Not for me, he said. For himself. I nodded. That's enough, Maya. That's a start. In the months that followed, the air began to clear. Daniel allowed Maya to see Jamie regularly. Slowly, the boys' laughter started to sound fuller again. Aaron moved out of state, started over, I heard. But he never spoke ill of Maya again. And me? I found myself thinking a lot about what it means to carry someone else's secrets. For so long, I'd defined myself as the good twin, the one who fixed, who protected, who held things together. But somewhere in that process, I'd forgotten to take care of myself. I realized I'd built my entire identity around keeping peace, even when that peace cost me my own rest. So, I started to write again. Short essays at first, about sisterhood, forgiveness, boundaries. People online began to read them, to share them. They said my words made them feel seen. One night, Maya called me after reading one of my pieces. You're turning this into something beautiful, she said. You always were the one who could turn pain into purpose. I smiled softly. Maybe that's what sisters are for. We carry each other, even when we drop each other along the way. Then came the day that changed everything again. Not through tragedy this time, but through clarity. Maya invited both families, Aaron, Daniel, Jamie, and even their relatives, to a gathering at a community hall. She said it was a closure dinner. At first, I thought it was a bad idea. "Are you sure about this?" I asked. She nodded firmly. "If I'm ever going to move forward, I need to stop hiding from the people I hurt." When the evening came, the air in that hall was thick, not with anger anymore, but with quiet tension. Aaron stood in one corner, polite but reserved. Daniel sat with Jamie near the food table, and Maya, my brave, messy, complicated sister, stood in the center, holding a microphone. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she began. "But I can't rebuild on broken ground." I lied. I cheated. I made choices that ruined trust. But I am not running anymore. I am here, not to ask for sympathy, but to show that even after we fall apart, we can rise with truth. Her voice wavered near the end, but she didn't cry. She stayed composed, strong in her vulnerability. When she finished, there was silence, and then, softly, someone clapped. It was Daniel. Then Jamie. And soon, the entire room joined. It wasn't applause for perfection. It was for honesty. That night, after everyone left, Maya and I stood outside under the streetlight. The air was crisp, and for the first time in years, her face looked peaceful. "You know," she said, looking at me, "I used to think you were lucky, that being the good one was easy, but it must have been exhausting." I laughed quietly. "It was." She took my hand, squeezing it. "Then maybe now, it's your turn to rest." I looked at her, my sister, flawed, forgiven, finding her way, and I realized something. Sometimes the biggest act of love isn't saving someone. It's letting them face their truth. 6 months later, life looked different. Not perfect, not magical, just different. And sometimes, different is all the peace you need. Maya had moved into a small apartment across town. It wasn't fancy, just 2 bedrooms, a narrow kitchen, and a little balcony that looked out over a row of maple trees. But it was hers. Jamie spent weekends there, and sometimes I'd stop by after work with takeout. We'd sit on her floor, eating noodles from the carton, laughing at shows we used to watch as kids. Her laugh had changed, softer now, like she was learning to trust it again. Aaron had remarried quietly. Daniel was seeing someone new too, a kind woman from church. And somehow, in this strange web of fate, all of them, even Maya, had reached a sort of quiet understanding. People move on. Not always together, but forward. One evening, I was sitting on that same balcony with Maya. The sun was setting, streaks of orange and violet painting the sky. She was watering a little pot of basil, and I was scrolling through the comments on my latest blog post, the one where I'd written about forgiveness between sisters. "You ever notice," she said, setting down the watering can, "that forgiveness doesn't mean going back? It's more like walking side by side, but on 2 different roads." I smiled. "You're getting good at this wise talk, you know." She laughed. "Guess I had a good teacher." We sat there for a while, just listening to the wind through the trees. Then she said quietly, "Do you ever wish you hadn't told the truth?" That question lingered between us, heavy but not angry. I thought about all that had happened, the hurt, the chaos, the silence that followed. "No," I said finally. "Because lies don't just hurt the liar. They rot everyone who loves them." Maya nodded slowly, her eyes glistening in the dim light. "Yeah, I was rotten for a while, wasn't I?" I reached over, touched her hand. "You were lost, but you found your way back." She turned to me with a tearful smile. "You're the reason I did." Months passed. The story that once tore through our family became something quieter, a memory that still stung but didn't define us anymore. One afternoon, I got a call from Aaron's new wife, Layla. She said Aaron wanted to speak with both of us, Maya and me. I was hesitant at first, but curiosity got the better of me. When we met, he looked at peace. Not angry, not bitter, just calm. "I wanted to thank you," he said to Maya, "for being honest when it mattered. You didn't fix the past, but you stopped it from getting worse." Maya's eyes welled up. "I don't deserve your kindness." Aaron shook his head. "Maybe not then. But you've earned it now." It wasn't forgiveness with fanfare or tears. It was quiet, adult, human. And that kind of forgiveness, the kind that asks for nothing in return, is the rarest kind of all. After that day, I went home and sat by my window, watching the city lights flicker. I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Completion. Because the truth is, This story wasn't really about betrayal. It was about identity. For years, I defined myself through Maya's chaos. The sister who always cleaned up the mess, who held the secrets, who tried to make everyone else okay. But this journey had taught me something important. You can't save someone by losing yourself. You can love them, support them, and pray for them. But their healing is their own to claim. I remember one last thing Maya said to me before she left for a trip she'd planned to start fresh. A retreat for women who'd gone through similar betrayals, both as victims and as the ones who caused pain. "I think I'm ready to tell my story," she said, and I smiled. "Then tell it honestly, Maya. Tell it so someone else knows they're not alone." She hugged me tightly. "You always knew how to turn pain into purpose, Tess. Maybe I can learn to do that too." When she drove off that morning, I stood on the porch and watched her taillights fade into the sunrise. There was no ache this time, just a quiet gratitude that we'd both survived the fire and come out whole, even if a little scarred. That night, I wrote the final entry in the blog I'd started when everything fell apart. My sister taught me that truth cuts deep, but lies kill slowly. Sometimes, love means stepping into the light, even if it burns a little at first, because at least then, you can see each other clearly again. I didn't write it for clicks or sympathy. I wrote it for the women like us, the ones who carry shame that isn't theirs, who love people who hurt them, who learn that boundaries aren't walls, but doors with locks you choose when to open. Weeks later, I got an email from a woman in another state. She said, "Your story helped me forgive my sister." We hadn't spoken in years. I sat there reading her words, and I realized that what began as betrayal had become something sacred, a ripple of healing moving through strangers I'd never meet. Maya's mistake had broken our family, yes, but in the cracks, the light got in. And sometimes, that's all grace really is, the light that sneaks in after everything falls apart. You know, baby. Sometimes the hardest stories to tell are the ones that start right inside our own homes. When love turns into silence, when family becomes a battlefield, it breaks something deep inside you. But here's what I learned from Maya's story. Pain can be a teacher if you let it. See, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It means you stop carrying the weight of what they did, so your hands are free to build something new. Maya thought her truth would destroy her family. And maybe, for a time, it did. But it also set them free. Because sometimes, you have to burn down what's false to make room for what's real. She sets her cup down and looks directly at the camera, eyes warm, steady, filled with experience. When you've been betrayed by someone you love, you start to question everything, even yourself. But listen to me, sweetheart. Your worth isn't measured by who stayed. It's measured by how bravely you stood when the truth came out. You can rebuild. You can start again. And you can find peace in a home that may look different, but finally feels like yours. So tonight, I want you to ask yourself this. What truth have you been too afraid to speak? And what might happen if instead of hiding it, you let it lead you to freedom? Because the truth, it hurts for a little while, but silence, it kills slowly. Tell your truth, baby. Someone's healing might just depend on it.